Me.
Hello and welcome. From coming up from the ground in your favorite county of Washtenaw, it's the Entheo Show with Mike Williams and Colin McDougall.
Hey, thanks, Jim, for the intro.
Buddy.
We're on, yeah.
Cool.
We're live in Facebook land. We need to get in some more lands, like Twitch and some of those things that us old people aren't all that great with.
We'll figure it out soon. As a young person, I'll take it upon myself to figure it out one of these days. But we have a great show ahead for us today. We have our guests from Mid-Michigan and Hazel Park, Michigan. And we have a couple folks from each group. We're going to break it into two segments today, just how it goes. This is our 6th episode. It's hard to believe it's been already 6 episodes. Last week we had on Melissa Lavanzani from Plant Medicine Coalition, and she was also the executive director of Initiative 81 in Washington, D.C. So check out those past episodes, and we have some future guests coming on in the coming months too, pretty much all booked up through the month of April. So a lot of cool guests coming on, and just different chapters opening up all across Michigan. So last night we had another community action hour, and we last time we wrote our legislators, and then yesterday our action hour item was to call them today, and we kind of went through a lobby 101, and that's all available on our website, all the lobbying sheets and everything. And if you weren't able to write the letter to your legislators, we have that also online. You can check out that at decrimnaturemi.org. Yeah.
We're also going to have some upcoming events, kind of repeats of last night, where we help you with what these meetings are going to look like after you make your calls to your reps. We're asking everybody, even if you weren't at the meeting, call your representatives, call your senator's office, ask for a meeting. It'll probably take a couple weeks. During that time, contact decrimnaturemi@gmail.com. Let us know, and we will help you assemble a small lobby team to come with you for your meeting, which will probably be digital, just like this via Zoom. So we have a lot of materials to help prep you for this. You don't have to go at this alone. I know it sounds,
daunting.
I'm gonna go talk with them, have a meeting with my senator. Hey, don't worry, we've got your back. We've got a team ready to be there with the facts. Well, we're ready to do this with you. So just talk with us. Let us know when your meetings are, and yeah.
And it's really easy to talk with them. Like I was talking yesterday in the meeting, I was able to already speak with my state representative, and he's really easy to talk to, and we just got to give him enough research and some time, and I'm sure that with that, there's not much he can say against any of these legislators can say against it. So I guess what else is new with us? Also, I guess, is it almost what's next on the agenda?
We talked about our guest. Oh, we got the book. Well, I don't know, Jim. Neither one of us have gotten a chance to really dig in. It's been a busy couple weeks for Decrim Nature Michigan, and beautiful outside. And we want to enjoy nature and the entangled life. We want to be an experience. So we've been out enjoying sunshine. But check it out, Entangled Life. We'll finish this up one of these upcoming shows, and then we'll find some more books to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah, this book is great though. From what I've been reading, it's incredible. It just gets very in depth on mycology and just fascinating research on the origins of mycology and mushrooms in general on this planet. Um, so yeah, this is definitely something that we
If
recommend and we will finish.
If any of our viewers out there are very disappointed we're not finishing a book on schedule, please let us know, and we will make sure to be better about keeping up with our listeners. We don't know how the demand is, but if there is a demand, we will meet it. Um,
Exactly.
so, with that said, you want to cover the week in news? I'll maybe cover the M Live stuff when you're done with that.
Sure, I'll finish off with that one, huh? Here's some news, Entheo news from around the nation here in the world. Seattle doctor hoping to expand access to psilocybin mushrooms for terminally ill cancer patients is suing the DEA over the agency's recent denial of an application to legally use psychedelic in end-of-life treatment. It's the first lawsuit of its kind. And this case is about seeking to ensure the patients with serious life-threatening illness are capable to realize the promise of state and federal right to try laws, said the attorney for that lawsuit. In New York, a lawmaker is proposing to decriminalize psilocybin measure in the state. Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal introduced the reform legislation Monday, and it would amend the state statute by removing psilocybin and psilocin from the list of controlled substances. The similar bill was introduced last year by Rosenthal. The old version did not include psilocin. Mike, can you talk about psilocin really quick before I continue on to the next news bulletin?
I I probably can. I wasn't paying too much attention to what you're saying. I was looking for an email to refer to later.
Sure.
Well, what do you want to know about psilocybin? What's the question?
Psilocin. Explain to our listeners what psilocin is versus psilocybin.
Uh, I'm gonna refrain from doing that because I'm going to get it backwards without reference materials in front of me. Uh, One of them easily oxidizes into the other. I believe it's psilocin oxidizes into psilocybin, but I'm saying that on a whim.
I
Don't
think you're right. I think you're right.
But yes, so that's the bluing mechanism you see in the mushroom, the bruising when they get handled while they're fresh. That is the oxidation of psilocin into psilocybin.
Yeah. Didn't mean to catch you off guard there.
Oh, it's fine. I just I'm trying to find something for the past half an hour to refer to in this meeting, and it is still missing.
Well, you got time because I'm about to continue the news here. A new study published in the Journal of Pharmacology is reporting on a landmark clinical trial exploring the potential for MDMA assisted psychotherapy in treating subjects with alcohol use disorder. The small open label trial is the first to test MDMA therapy as a treatment for addiction, and the results suggest it is safe, well tolerated, and significantly more effective than any current treatment for alcoholism. The Entheogenic Plant and Fungus Policy Act of 2020, we were just talking about our friends over there, also known as Initiative 81, came into effect in Washington, D.C. on Monday. It allows those in the district to use plant and fungi medicines without fear of being investigated, arrested, or jailed. Congressional restrictions prevent the district from completely decriminalizing or legalizing natural psychedelics. However, Initiative 81 puts policy against those who take entheogenic plants and fungi among the lowest of law enforcement priorities. The antidepressant effects of psychedelic brew, known as ayahuasca, appear to be related to anti-inflammatory activity, according to a new research from scientists in Brazil. Their findings, published in the Journal of psychopharmacology provides new insights into the biological mechanisms behind the observed antidepressant effects of the substance. In this study, a single dose of ayahuasca and not the placebo reduced both depressive symptoms and systemic inflammation of treatment resistance depressive patients 2 days after the treatment. I hear music out there. Ann Arbor police are checking to see if a service offering same-day delivery of so-called magic mushrooms in the city is in compliance with the law. Despite both the city and Washtenaw County taking recent measures to loosen restrictions on psilocybin mushrooms, police said that they are still investigating whether the service is offered by Arbor Shrooms, which advertises on colorful flyers throughout the city, and whether or not they're legal.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, Mike.
So yeah, you did. That's the first MLive article, correct?
That is, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I've been searching all time to get this accurate. I found it just in time. So there are several inaccuracies in this article, as well as another MLive article that just came out. It is, a matter of simple miscommunication. It's no bad blood or anything. Nobody was trying to write something wrong about us. Just some minor miscommunications. Those miscommunications occurred because we formed officially with the state as a ballot initiative committee. Therefore, some really catchy headlines that say voters may get to choose to legalize magic mushrooms have seen MLive the past couple days. That is not necessarily the case. We are not looking to go to a ballot initiative. What I can say about that, we initially formed as the ballot committee with the state just as a means to, report how we're dealing with our funds and think about it, but with no intention to bring it to the ballot box. We recognize it's best that we can work collaboratively with our leadership towards healing our veterans, elders, and those with mental health needs together as one community. And then, so the language that is referred to got confused. Colin was talking about the language we'd prepared, and it was confused to be ballot language. The language is actually proposed legislation that we are working with members of the legislation to get introduced. We have full faith in our Michigan legislators' dedication to good public policy, and believe that they're going to, with the evidence available, vote. So our efforts succeed, and we're asking our voters, reach out to your elected officials, like we said, schedule a meeting, reach out to us. But just some clarification there. Now, specifically regarding the flyers in Ann Arbor, which is a very interesting story, and I want to talk about that. I probably should pull that article up, but there's a second inaccuracy in there. First and foremost, the headline that I just discussed was mentioned in this article. And so more, news out there saying we're going to the vote. And we don't want voters to think that. Yes, we want engaged voters, but we want engaged voters to reach out to their representatives to do this with us, because together, this is sensible policy. This makes sense. We can solve problems with this policy. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower people, and we're trying to, show good faith in the legislation to do what's right for the state of Michigan. But this flyer article also said that the Ann Arbor resolution, the article says that part of the resolution passed in Ann Arbor reads, this resolution does not authorize or enable any of the following activities: commercial sales or manufacturing of these plants and fungi, possessing or distributing these materials in schools, driving under the influence of these materials, or public disturbance. Now, anybody that was at our meeting in Ann Arbor, it was a Zoom meeting, September 21st, 2020. You can look at the minutes, they are quite public. That was amended from the actual language. That exact piece of language right there is actually not in there. And it is a very common mistake. I don't think it's a case of bad reporting. If you look, the unamended version is still what's posted with the city. But if you look at the city meeting minutes, that was proposed to be removed and that amendment was passed. So, while that was not our intention, that was part of our initial language. The language there in the argument against the flyers is actually a little bit more gray area than we even intended. Um, am I forgetting anything in terms of corrections? Because I want to talk about the flyers.
Um, no, I wanted to just, there was more about the flyers, I was gonna say.
Yeah, these flyers. This is fantastic. I think it's hilarious. These people are the first ones. We knew it was going to happen. Somebody's going to take the risk, try and play with what they see as a gray area. Some people were just not going to read the law and violate what we allow because they think it does more than it doesn't. We know this is what's going to happen with any change in the rules. But these guys put flyers up on telephone poles, big, bright, tie dye flyers, and selling grams of magic mushrooms. And I don't have the article right in front of me, but the lady.
There was a QR code on it.
Here comes Hannah, you guys.
Okay. So the lady that created these posters, or at least that you reach through these posters, says that they actually have a legal team, that they believe within the language of the law and the language Ellie Stavitt put out with his declaration that they are operating within the confines of that. And I think this is going to be really interesting to what goes on. They say they're connecting people in need and caregivers with, or people in need with caregivers and mycologists, not actually selling substances, and that people are paying for that connection service. Um, I want to hear some thoughts on this.
And also, like, they said that they are not like a commercial entity, and they're not like an actual business, but like you're saying, they're like, I mean, we want to say caregiver, but um, I can't remember. Like, they're a community organization that helps other members of the community, which is pretty interesting. Um, I thought they were pretty expensive. Well, the prices of them, I have to say.
$20 a gram.
Yeah.
It, where there's a lack of accessibility, people are going to capitalize on it. And that's a big piece of the DN thing is our ethos. We don't want it to be capitalized on. We want to see people share these substances and know how to grow them and, have it proliferate and trying to fight against this capitalist system.
Yeah, I mean
It's
that
inevitable.
yeah.
I'm sorry. It's inevitable for this to come to be, and it's just part of that. I think the process of where this is headed for the future. So it's got to go through these kinks, and there are going to be laws formed, and hopefully sooner than later we can get that done.
I will say the counterpoint because what we're interested in, but Lieutenant Mike Sherba from the Ann Arbor Police says, from what he can tell, it looks to be a business that is growing and selling, and he would call that manufacture of mushrooms, which, as he reads the council resolution, falls outside of the scope of council when that resolution was developed. So this is going to be something to watch. This is not new. They're only investigating. They haven't made any arrests. But the owner of this enterprise is definitely being pretty open reachable at least by media.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if Ellie Savitt will come out and.
I think he put he has a statement in that article too.
Oh, what's Ellie say?
I can't remember. I think it's in there.
I
read it yesterday night.
Hold on.
Or either that or they took a statement from his office.
So Hannah, just to let you know, I was just going to update Hannah while she sits there so patiently. We're talking about some posters in Ann Arbor that have been set up on telephone poles, selling psilocybin basically for $20 a gram.
Oh, I thought it was 50 a gram.
How much?
50.
50
no,
a gram.
$20 a gram.
Wow.
I do believe this article says.
I swear it was. I swear it saw something 50.
Arbor Shrooms features a variety of mushrooms on its website, starting at $20 per gram, and describes trip levels from relaxed euphoria to total loss. But here, I got the Ellie Savitt statement really quick. So Ellie Savitt, Washtenaw County prosecutor, when asked about arbor shrooms, we will consider that just we will consider this just as we will consider any other warrant request that comes in. I wouldn't prejudge any more requests or say that we definitely charge anything until we see the evidence. Commercial distributors of entheogenic plants are not covered by our policy.
Fair enough.
I pulled up the article. I'm getting up to speed here.
Nice.
What are your thoughts on this, Hannah? We have Hannah Spring here from Decriminalize Nature, Mid-Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not surprised. We've got a lot of people that are excited to, help their communities gain access to this. And I think those that may have the balls, even though they don't know the jurisdiction yet, to try something out, this is what we're seeing. So I'm not at all surprised by this or the scalping of prices. That definitely is to come, no doubt. But I'm curious to see how this shakes down for sure.
Looks like
we're going to be joined by Ann Bannister in 3, 2, 1 here.
Yeah, I want to get her. Did you know Ann was coming on today?
Yeah, I've been. She just emailed us and asked.
Great.
Some availability.
Maybe she'll catch up.
There is. I think they're based out of Vancouver. I know that there's a similar situation been happening in Canada where it's a delivery service, and although it's not technically legal, that company has been operating, I think, for quite some time with police being aware of what they're doing, but with it being decriminalized as heavily as it is, they're just allowing them to operate. So
you think this Arbor Shrooms is actually Vancouver based?
No, but I've seen that there are delivery services that, despite it not being completely legalized, police have decided to let companies continue. And I think that was based out of Vancouver. I have no idea if these would be the same people or not.
I want to get former Ann Arbor Councilwoman Ann Bannister's opinion on this because she just joined us. But I almost see it as like, as long as they're operating transparently and, cooperating with the law enforcement as they operate this gray area, they're providing a very needed service. Unfortunately, part of the DN model, we're all about accessibility. That's why we're like, grow your own. And we're offering classes to Michigan Psychedelic Society and Decriminalize Nature Michigan, how to grow your own psilocybin mushrooms. We're working on those projects because we have so many requests for these substances. But the thing is, we are not selling these substances. That's not what we passed a law to allow us to do. We're passing legislation to allow ourselves to cultivate these. And that's why we're providing classes on how to cultivate. But in the meantime, when people don't know and they don't have 3 months to wait, they need them now and they're asking. And, I go back and forth. This $20 gram is a lot of money and really begs the question on the accessibility piece. But it makes it available to somebody that just doesn't know. Councilwoman Bannister, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having the show.
I guess what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Well, the resolution was for lowest law enforcement priority. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the police investigation of what they are going to do or not do. But their track has been that, as Mike was saying, if it's not a problem, if there aren't problems occurring, impaired driving, public disturbance, things like that, if there's not a problem happening, they weren't going to actively go out of their way to research, to go follow up and on it. So taking things slow and incrementally seems to be their style with Chief Cox there and his community policing unit. They very much want to be community policing and peace officers and getting to know us. That's one of the things, is trying to get over the hump, not being afraid to walk up to a police officer at a rally or a festival or a protest and say hello, and because they're nervous too and they're human also.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. We've talked about that a lot on this show, making connections with people that we wouldn't normally, because when it comes down to it, we're all just humans and we have more in common than we don't. And I think if you just sit down with that person that really upsets you and talk about something else, you find you have a lot more in common. And, talk about music and ditch politics for a while. But at the same time, you were there, you voted in the meeting September 21st. And you remember in that meeting, there was an amendment to the language as proposed. And that amendment was to actually remove the clause that said enabling commercial sales, manufacture of these plants and fungi, possessing or distributing these materials in schools, driving under the influence of these materials in public disturbance, because we thought the police, as I understood it, and the city attorney thought that made it too specific, and then made a lot more instances where police had to make a specific call based situationally. And we wanted it to be, is it actually causing a harm? We're going to intervene. Is it not causing a harm? We don't have to look at a whole bunch of rules to see if it's complying. Am I correct in understanding how that amendment went down? And
yes, I think that was how that went down. And I think, as is at usual at a council meeting, they've got 20, a dozen to a couple dozen important issues that on the table on any given meeting. So I think that they were generally supportive, and then they were following the lead of staff. If staff was recommending that amendment, then council tries to rely on the city's high-paid staff for what they say they need.
Well, this is probably the most time we've ever spent on any one piece of news on this show. We do have Hannah here as a guest. I want to get to talking about Decriminalize Nature, Mid-Michigan. I believe we had a couple other Mid-Michigan reps planning on being here. I don't know where they're at, but hopefully Hannah can fill us in on what's going on Lansing, mid-Michigan region.
Yeah, let me pull up my notes. We met 2 weeks ago. I know Scott said he was going to be here. I'm not sure where he is.
I just emailed him. I don't know if anyone could text him. I don't have his number.
I'll try and text. I got Andres, I think.
Yeah, Andre, I think, is still dealing with some stuff, so I don't know that he's going to be able to be on. He hasn't
Gotcha.
been.
Well, the website is up and live, so we're definitely, the digital front is moving well. So we'll get more of a presence online, which will be huge to get folks more aware of what's going on in the Lansing area. I know that we are drafting and potentially have already sent some education language for the mayor and the city council because they were meeting soon. So right now for Lansing, we're right at the stages of starting to alert elected officials in that more like public space that we are here and this is what we're doing. So I know that that's the main place that we're at right now. I don't know if I can speak too much to who's on board, especially the specifics of elected officials. I do know that the Lansing area, they have 8 council members. I believe all of them are Democrats, with just a couple of them leaning a bit more conservative. But I know that there's some turnover and some scuffle, I think, in leadership in Lansing right now. The former mayor is running, the current mayor is unannounced. And I know that a recent Black Lives Matter leader was recently fired. So there's some things going on in leadership that is definitely lending to, how we're going to reach out to these folks depending on how they feel about these issues. So I don't know if I'm the best person to be talking about Lansing. Scott and Andre definitely know who in particular has heard about our information and how they feel about it. I just know kind of the basic logistics of where it's at, but none of the nitty gritty that would be fun to talk about on a podcast, unfortunately.
Sure. Well, you've been on the Mid-Michigan call, so I'm actually just looking at the website right now for the first time, and it's beautiful. I great job. It's really well put together, and it fits the same scheme as the Ann Arbor page, the Michigan page, the Decrim Oakland page. There's a lot of the same themes to all of them, but they're all their own, and I really like how it's so decentralized and open source, and everybody just shares the idea and works off of each other's templates and makes it their own, and it's really great to see. But since you've been at some of these other meetings, or the Mid-Michigan meetings, what other areas in Mid-Michigan are, up for discussion right now?
Up for discussion as far as getting them in the loop, or?
I mean, we've got people showing up to meetings from the city, ready to activate in that city. Just a lot of people located in one area, nobody really taking leadership yet, but potential.
Sure. So Andre and Scott are based in Lansing, so they're definitely in the heart, and all of the, the political based news, all the statewide news is coming out of Lansing. So that's a great media hub for 2 of our main leadership to be. So that's great. I'm based out of Battle Creek. That's where I'm from, recently moved back, but have a lot of connections in Lansing as well. We've had folks, Jim, you're based out of Saline, I know. Leah, she's based in the Gregory area, which is between Jackson and Ann Arbor and Lansing, kind of in the Livingston area. She did a lot of help with the edits that were just made to the website. So that's great. And I think that's we had a few other people that joined the leadership, but I didn't write down where they're all from. But we had another person from Battle Creek. So we're kind of sporadically based, which can be a good thing for sure. We've got some good coverage. And I wish I had my other notes in front of me. But the reason we went with the Mid-Michigan label is because it is quite inclusive. You could go from St. John's to Jackson, stretching into Battle Creek, and just the Ingham County. It's quite vast. It's amazing. It always amazes me how big Lansing really is. So I think going with that Mid-Michigan label keeps it really inclusive and really gives us that room to expand the more that we find folks who want to help out with this organizing.
Yeah, I think it's really useful what your team has done too in creating the first regional group in our state, just based on the idea that there is too many places in that 127 corridor, you know, all the way up to Mount Pleasant. I know I've heard Scott and Andre talking about Mount Pleasant, but from that inspiration, immediately the Niles, Buchanan, Kalamazoo crowds started talking to each other, and they're like, well, let's make a regional over here, Southwest Michigan, another very spread out region. And now we're talking about one maybe up Ludington to Petoskey and Bay City, Taos regions. So I'm really glad there was some pioneering there from the Mid-Michigan team. It looked like Jim or Colin had something to say, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Hannah, how did you become involved with the Mid-Michigan and just Decriminalize Nature?
That was my question too.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I've been organizing and managing grassroots campaigns for the last 3 years in more of the environmental consumer rights sector. Really love the work. I've seen, the energy and the movements that can take place at the community level with communities helping themselves, especially passing local ordinances is really how we can make initiatives like decriminalizing entheogens move a lot quicker than doing statewide, and definitely federal movements for sure. So, and I'm a massive plant medicine advocate. I'm going to grad school right now to get my counseling degree in some mindfulness-based counseling so that I can practice therapy one day with psychedelics, and psilocybin's definitely my number one. So by the time that I'm out of grad school and I've done my practicum and all of my hours, I'm pretty confident the psilocybin will be available to me to start using in some sessions. So I just follow the movement where I can. Michigander, born and raised. So I definitely was well up when I heard the news about the ordinance passing in Ann Arbor, and transitioning from work to school. I now have this downtime, so definitely want to lend some of my time and effort as much as I can to this movement. I deeply believe that, and I've read the research and have just followed along to see that the data is there, that psychedelic medicine, the plant medicine is a catalyst for some radical healing that people need. We know that veterans, it's those treatment resistant issues that folks struggle with, that plant medicine can really come in and do leaps and bounds for people's mental health and well-being. So there's a lot of mental illness and emotional issues that come from feeling just outright disconnected from the people around us. And plant medicine has a great way of reminding us that we are all interconnected. So it's quite incredible how normal psychotherapies and things that have been happening for decades in the mainstream therapy worlds can really be catalyzed by these substances. So here for it 100%. And I think at the root of that, the more healing that can be done on that radical level within communities, especially those that have been most impacted by the war on drugs and capitalism and white supremacy, I think that using these plant medicines to our advantage will speed up the process of dismantling some of these systems of oppression that are so so interconnected and intertwined right now. So here to help 100%, bottom line.
That is awesome. It's great to have you along for the journey. I was going to ask, where are you attending grad school right now?
So I'm applying. I was thinking about doing a pretty general way in getting a master's in social work, because right now there really aren't any just straightforward master's programs working with plant medicine, just with the legalization process. Not quite there yet. But what I found, the number one program that I'd like to get into is Naropa University based in Boulder. They have mindfulness-based counseling, and they also just partnered with MAPS, I think a year or two ago, on an MDMA assisted therapy. I think it was a whole course, and they did a study at the university. So they have long time partnered with some amazing psychedelic research and just leaders paving the way in that area. So Naropa University and getting a master's in a mindfulness-based counseling. Really what you can do as a grad student right now, unless you're going straight to medical school, where you can probably get into some clinical trials where they're actively using these substances. But if you're not going to med school, getting like a psychotherapy mixed with like a somatic therapy, a bit of a spiritual, more Western type of education is the best way to set yourself up while the legalization process continues to get more access.
Actually spoken to Julie Barron, fellow co-director for Nature Michigan, about Naropa. I
Really?
think that's where she got her MA. Am I correct in this?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. You should definitely talk to her, because I believe she had a very positive experience.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, the school looks incredible. I mean, they've had some of the foremost scientists and thinkers of transpersonal psychology and plant medicine come through there or lecture or teach there. So it definitely seems like a hub that is prioritizing that type of work. So
I've got a quick question for you. What, obviously you have a lot of support, but over the years, when you've gotten into this, what kind of resistance have you received from family or friends, and for going this route? And how do you respond to that?
yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a first generation graduate of a four-year college. My parents are a strong middle-class family, so I'm paving the way in a college education to begin with. So my parents are very excited about that. And my mom is thrilled to know I'm going back for a master's. I graduated from Michigan State in 2015 with a BS in psychology. So I'm going back after a few years.
Go green.
Go white. And so my parents know that plant medicine is my passion. I never really considered myself going into practicing therapy until I realized that I could pair that with these beautiful substances. So now I'm all game for that. My mom's big concern is that I'm pigeonholing myself, or that I'm going into something too specific that won't lend to enough opportunities. So, and there is that stigma around it. So I think my parents and any older generation that isn't quite in the know of really the potential of these substances past just the recreational use that everyone knows about, she's concerned that there won't be enough opportunity for me. And if you don't know or understand the momentum building in these legalization campaigns across the country, I can see how you would be afraid that there's not going to be opportunity. But it's my devout trust that, we will make this happen, and people need access to these medicines. So I'm going to keep my head down and do the training I need to do, so that when this really starts to bloom for people, I'll be ready to provide access. And a big piece of why I want to be a part of this, as I understand that we need to do this carefully. We have a lot of lessons to learn from the cannabis movement and access to communities that need it most. So with my head on straight, I definitely want to be holding myself accountable as a counselor, as well as everyone else in the movement, to make sure that we don't, get swallowed by capitalism and all the other systems that just want to exploit these substances and other people in the process. So yeah, I think for folks that aren't really in the fold of what's going on, they're concerned that this is a pipe dream. There's too much stigma around it, when that is far from the truth, as we all know.
I think that's the biggest barrier all of our campaigns are facing right now, is just getting over that information gap. You're either in the know or you're not. There's very little kind of in the know. And the education with Ann Arbor City Council was a big piece, because a lot of the council members didn't know going in. But, same thing with a lot of our parents. I think, like you're saying, is, they're worried about us as their children. Are we going to amount to something and chasing this pipe dream, because they don't understand that this is like, if we don't do this way right now, it's coming. The corporate medicalization train is coming anyways, and this is happening. There's too many billions of dollars behind this and too much research supporting this, that all we're doing is protecting common sense, the right to grow, the right to have community, the right to share, before this becomes a regulated thing. We're not asking for something crazy. We're just protecting, our rights as, citizens.
I was watching a podcast yesterday, and it was talking about the psychedelic movement, and how it says, like, we're playing a game of chess, and there's three moves away from being checkmate, and we just realized that we aren't playing checkers. So I'm glad that, like, I'm here with you guys, because I think that we're a little bit away from that checkmate. We're a couple more moves away, but definitely other places around the world and other parts of the country definitely I feel are, going to be cornered by these big pharmaceutical companies. And but just I think it, like, that also, that our own individual cultivation and the energy that we put into these things that we grow is gonna it'll be like tenfold that anything that they could sell us with but I guess Hannah, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the Mid-Michigan Decriminalize Nature, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, so I would say that we're in a good spot. We're planting seeds right now. I think the seeds are planted, and at this point we're waiting for a bit of a response. So Ryan Jackson is a representative of the 4th Ward of Lansing, and he wanted the Mid-Michigan chapter to mention our campaign and what's going on at the next council meeting, which I believe, Jim, remind me, do you remember if that already happened or is just about to happen? I know it's right around now.
I'm sorry, say that again. I was searching for something.
You're all right. Andre mentioned that Lansing is having a council meeting soon, and there was a 4th Ward representative that wanted Decrim to mention this, and we were prepping for some testimony and just really building to, like, the first major public introduction of our campaign to the Lansing City Council.
I'm not sure when that was decided on to be,
but that's
coming up soon. I think it's
that's
there.
so I know that Lansing officials are becoming aware of this, and it's a great place to be because East Lansing has, a bit more of like a college town, obviously, reputation. So really building this support out from Lansing, where we're closer to elected officials, is really going to, I think, build some major clout for this state campaign. And we know we need the clout. So I'm excited to see that build. As far as getting involved with Mid-Michigan, I would go to the website, which is decriminaturem.org. And there's a Get Involved tab. Right now, we're still building our team and finding out what everyone's strengths are and how we can get involved. And really, once this first toe dip that the city council gets of who we are and what our vision is for these substances and for the state of Michigan, that's when we're really going to take off with some next steps of continuing that conversation. So as we know, with effective organizing, it's a conversation with our peers and our colleagues. So right now we're in the stage of passing the torch to them so they can look over the material on their own and let that sink in. And then from there, we'll see what questions and comments they have and continue to build that rapport and that education with them. As we all know, education is a major lift for plant medicine campaigns. So, but I do believe that we have a receptive group in Lansing as far as the officials are concerned. So would definitely go to the website and get the Get Involved tab, get us your contact information. And we're starting to hold regular meetings every Thursday at 3 p.m. over Zoom. So if we can get your contact info, we'll get you connected and get you in the loop. Definitely not too late to hop in. It's quickly building, but we're still at the early stages. So this is the perfect time to hop in if you've got skills or just passionate at all and have time to give.
You're on mute, Mike.
I'd echo that all the way up. Decrim Nature, Michigan, Decrim Nature, any of the locations, even national. New people are joining the movement every day, and we're finding new people every day with strengths that we didn't have previously. There's always room to join this movement. I think Mid-Michigan is ripe right now. In terms of, we've got Detroit and Grand Rapids making moves, but I think Mid-Michigan's maybe catching up and gonna pass them here. Hopefully check in with Grand Rapids and see how they're doing soon. I want to get some thoughts from Anne here. You were on a that was, it took some persuading, but generally speaking, built the same way as the Lansing Council. Any words of advice for the Mid-Michigan group?
Yes, I did have one advice, bigger advice for Hannah and the group was that if we're coming out of the pandemic and Lansing City Council decides not to have their meetings on Zoom anymore and they go back to in person, then they may not allow people to call into the meeting for public comment. They might go back to the old style in person where you have to show up at Lansing City Hall to make your testimony or at the public hearing to the council. So that's something that that's a bit of urgency where you all at these next few months you can have, which really helped us in Ann Arbor in September, was we had people calling in from all over the country, researchers, testimonials, PhDs and stuff called in September, and that helped give the credibility and to the council members to see that this was a worthwhile and that this was hitting the community values of things for veterans, things for mental health, things for cognitive liberty and the long history in the spiritual and the indigenous. And so that was one thing that occurs to me is there's a window here while while we're not at in-person meetings. And then lastly, the divisiveness on the Lansing Council, that sounds like the Ann Arbor Council. And so this is an issue where in Ann Arbor it was unanimous. They're also a council of all Democrats. And so if Lansing's all Democrats and they're divided, they might be looking, as Ann Arbor people are, for something they can agree on that's a community benefit. So those were my two main suggestions: to hurry while we're on Zoom and to take advantage of as for something everyone can be unanimous and have consensus on.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann. And I will say another plug that the Mid-Michigan chapter is looking for is that we are still seeking out more council connections and relationships within the Mid-Michigan city. So if you're listening to this and if you've got an uncle or a good friend or an old colleague that sits on the council, let us know. We want to continue building those connections. So if there is any divisiveness, there's some, trusted connection that can be a good conduit for these messages that we want to get to these officials.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us, Hannah, and you can stick around. But it looks like Shan has joined us from Hazel Park. Shan, welcome to the Entheo Show. Hey, you're on mute still.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah, for coming too.
Sorry.
You can stick around if you'd like, though, Hannah.
Yeah, as long as you'd like.
Sorry for popping in earlier, guys.
No, it's totally fine. The word.
Yeah, so hello, everyone. I'm from Decrim Nature, Hazel Park. Right now, it's basically just me, and Diana's helping out, Dr. Diana Quinn, and a couple other people, residents of Hazel Park. So we went ahead and sent over the framework for the resolution and also a copy of the resolution, the original, before the changes in Arbor had proposed. We sent that over the other day and hoping that they go over that and research it a little bit. There is 5 council members and a mayor. There's 2 that I spoke with personally that seem to be really supportive, which is what we need. The most important thing is they have an election coming up in November. So I try to get it over kind of fast because I want to make sure this is a super progressive council board. They've been supporting the cannabis industry and cannabis shops coming into the Hazel Park community for the last couple of years. So this is kind of falling in line for them with that as far as harm reduction goes. And that's where they want to emphasize is harm reduction and providing education for that. So we went ahead and sent that over, and I'm waiting for any changes or any rebuttal that they might have back to me.
Wow. That's awesome, though, to hear like that you've already sent the draft over to them. So I guess Shan, how did you first get involved to find out about Decrim Nature, and how did these council people get a hold of you in the first place?
Yeah, I actually got a hold of them. There's a couple residents of Hazel Park right now that are interested, and just because of the previous work that I've done and the work that I do in the community right now, they reached out to me asking if I could help them approach the city council with my knowledge and with some help from you guys and from Decrim Nature in general, bringing this to the council so we can continue to progress Hazel Park. There's tons and tons of mental health issues that I think are going to come up, especially after COVID. Yeah. So this was kind of falling in line with that. And we wanted to make sure that, adult use in Hazel Park was accessible for when all the PTSD symptoms and PTSS symptoms start to come down. But basically, I had a friend that knew a couple members of the council, and they got us all on a Zoom call together to discuss it. I explained to them the benefits that I personally have had with using psilocybin medicine and plant medicines in general. And they sounded very interested, and they sounded like this was something that they would be interested in providing for the citizens, so that they don't have the fear of being arrested, or just for, you know, trying to cope with everyday life, especially post-COVID life. So it kind of went hand in hand, and it was perfect for this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I guess you tell us like a little bit, our viewers, a little bit about Hazel Park? I'm sure not everyone's as familiar with it as they are of like Lansing or Ann Arbor or
Yeah.
Grand Rapids.
Yeah, Hazel Park is a little city. It's about 16 to 17,000 people there. It borders Detroit. So the southern border of Hazel Park backs right up to Detroit. They're super progressive. They welcome the LGBTQ community. Like I said, they just had 3 new cannabis businesses popping up there, which is amazing. And there's, you know, specifically, there's one of the council members that is kind of supportive of our measure, also was very supportive of the cannabis industries coming there as well. So he's kind of progressive. He understands we're moving forward in times. There's different ways of combating mental health issues and using plant medicines for harm reduction. So I think that's super great for us. Hazel Park is, yeah, it's a diverse city. There's all types of ethnicities there. There's new businesses popping up, restaurants. It's kind of becoming like a little Royal Oak to me, if anybody's familiar with the city of Royal Oak. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has, especially on like John R. as it's kind of like developing with the cannabis businesses. It's starting to like have like a Ferndale Royal Oak vibe to it, and you know, I'm sure that like they're in constant competition with like in between those cities. They're all like right jammed up next to each other. And I remember a couple of years ago we had an event in Hazel Park at the BDTs.
Yes.
And they always have like an awesome 420 event. But I think we were having like a Jazz Cabbage Cafe episode recorded inside there, and one of the city council people came in to that day, and I'm sure he's one of your sponsors, is what I'm getting at. But he was really progressive, and he was like he talked to all of us, and you know, he was smoking cannabis with us and whatnot. So it's really great to see like a small city like take this on, and I think that I'm not sure if Hazel Park were to push through a decrimination resolution, I think it'd be like the smallest city in the country to do so. Because I think that like Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Somerville are like still around like 60, 70,000. So they're like around the smallest right now. But yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. And for it to pass in Oakland County, it would be, I mean, that's just saying something. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
If anyone knows about that county. So.
Yeah, no, they have like a terrible sheriff in that county. If you don't know Oakland County, their sheriff, he's been, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but he's been an enemy of the cannabis world. Mike, are you trying to say something? You're on mute.
Yeah, it's probably better he's muted.
Oh, I'm laughing. Yeah, I'm like trying to pull up. Shop sheriff.
I think it's
Bouchard.
Yeah, Mike Bouchard.
Mike Bouchard.
Yeah, he's
But
been.
county prosecutor there that's pretty progressive now.
Yes. The new one.
Karen McDonald is the new one.
Yes.
And hopefully, like, if we're able to like get a resolution passed, maybe she would be interested in putting out a statement in regards to it, kind of like Ellie Sabat did. And also the prosecutor in Ingham County, Carol Neiman, I think is her name. She's a very progressive prosecutor too. And those are like the three progressive. Ellie Savat, Carol Neiman, and Karen McDonald are like the three most progressive in the state.
So it sounds like we need to get the three of them on a call together so we can have Ellie back up the Mid-Michigan and the Hazel Park movements.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. But you brought up something that we did in Ann Arbor, which I think is very important, recognizing who your current council is and that they are on your side and you can do something there. But elections are coming soon and to do it. Elections, I believe, were already done by the time we went to vote in Ann Arbor, but seats hadn't been taken since the vote yet. Is that correct?
Well, I think there was a primary election, and Ann Arbor is mainly Democratic, so it's more important the August election.
Yep. It's decided in August. We're one of the very few remaining municipalities that has a partisan primary. And so everything is decided in
August.
In August. Until such time, there's always often a talk of putting partisan elections back on the ballot for the voter to decide whether they want to decide in August or in November. November's widely considered by the experts to be more fair and open and more people can vote. Students are in town.
Right.
Ann Arbor, it has a ward system. It's so large. Like and I think Lansing's like that too, where like the population is divided into like pieces rather than like the general population elects the council. They're not at large, I should say.
Even Big Rapids does that. Big Rapids not being as big as its name.
Yeah, most municipalities do it that way. I know mine does, and just when they get larger, that's when they usually divide them into wards.
Yeah, well, this is 17,000 people. And hopefully we keep this board and get things moving. And they have council meetings on the 2nd and the 4th of each month. So I'm hoping we come up and, they bring this to the table, hopefully in April, since I already sent it. And if not May, but definitely before this group of people particularly leave. I want this particular group of people to help pull it in.
Yes, that sounds important, this group that you've identified.
Yeah.
You could always try later. For some reason it didn't work with the next group.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, things are looking good as far as getting things over. And as far as Decrim Nature Hazel Park, we could always use volunteers still. So I'm working on the website right now. I set up some social media stuff and email. But if anybody out there wants to volunteer that's in the city, that would be even better. We're still looking for testimonials. People that want to help with petitions, anything like that. If it comes down to something like that, we would use your help.
Cool. And when you get that website ready, we'll definitely share it on our social media and also Decrim Nature's Michigan's social media.
What's the email address for Hazel Park?
Decriminalize Nature Hazel Park at gmail.com.
Okay, so Decriminalize Nature Hazel Park.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to change it?
Some
Do I need
people
to
say
change it?
some people, I just want to make sure we have it clear. And then I'm assuming it's the same on social media, is easy to find. Colin, I think you had another question there.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I know that like ours is decrim nature mi, just because decriminalize can be hard for people like me to spell out.
Just spell.
But I mean, it's your web. I know that Julie uses the decriminalized nature Ann Arbor. I think it's all one word at Gmail or something. So it doesn't really matter.
Use your spell check, people.
Yeah.
Spell check.
Hey, Shannon, I've got a question. We asked Hannah this too. Hannah's part of the Decriminalize Nature Mid-Michigan group up in Lansing.
I was just listening to you guys and I saw her on there.
Awesome. Yeah, it was really good to have her. But we asked her this question, and I want to see your take on it. Like, when getting involved with this movement, what kind of resistance have you come across, and from friends or family, and how have you handled that?
So actually most of my friends and family have been supportive. The resistance that I've come across has actually been like, this is weird to say, but people in the cannabis industry a little bit have been, I don't know if they fear it as like a competition thing, or I have to do this and you can't do, I don't know, but like there's been, to me personally, I've gotten some resistance from just other like cannabis people, like calling it, not really believing in the medicine, but also I'm guessing it's also people that haven't tried the medicine or ever tried to approach it in a spiritual way, the way that I view it, the way that I see it as sacred. They kind of see it as like, I don't know, like just not as revered as cannabis to them. Other resistance, honestly, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to lawyers, I've talked to professional athletes that are all on board. So I personally haven't gotten too much resistance. I also am in a position where I don't have to encounter too much resistance. I work from home. I'm a stay-at-home mom. When I bring this topic up, it's usually with people that are kind of already primed for it. So I've really been blessed in that way that I haven't really had to have too much resistance. Yeah.
That's great.
There has been, I guess, questions about dosage, if anything, if you want to talk about resistance in that way, as far as dosage goes, people not agreeing on what an appropriate dose would be, you know.
I actually want to dig into this question a little bit because, I'm usually pretty prepared for anything media is going to throw at me. I've been doing this a while, but the dosage question came up. And, we don't want to condone you necessarily as a politically active organization. We want to condone the right to use, not use itself. But people having access to this information is really important. And, you hear a lot of terms thrown around. You hear microdose, macrodose, museum dose, subperceptual, heroic dose. You hear all these different terms, and I know what they mean, but I'm going to put it out to the room. What does this mean?
Yeah.
How do we approach this as political organizations advocating for safe and responsible use, reducing the harms that are associated by providing information without, saying, hey, go take an eighth or go take, how do we approach this?
Yeah, that is basically I'm there with you. That is exactly what I'm referring to, is people trying to figure out and, ask for advice, and we can't really give advice. I mean, this is you as an adult, you are able to make this choice on your own, but there are suggestions and guidelines. And I think, even Decrim DC has information on dosing on their page, I believe. And it just has a generalized little key of how you are going to be feeling, or a perception of how you're going to be feeling. I think it's important to put this out there, because one microdose is very different from a 5-gram dose. And the user, or the person taking the medicine, has to understand that and know that what they're getting into. So we definitely have to put this out there somewhere. I mean, not condoning use or anything, but we have to let them know, like, 0.10 is very different than 5 grams. And that is the question that everyone asks, I think, more than being resistant to the medicine. They're more curious, I guess, about what they should do and how to use the medicine.
I really like that. Yeah, there's a way. I think we have to pivot how we answer that question with giving more information about preparation and integration, and make it less about how much people need to take, but that process and what that process involves. Because it's the process. It's not, if you have the preparation involved and an integration process involved, I think that helps your dose. That helps whatever dose you do decide to take, because you're going to have somebody for your setting, and you're going to have correct procedures to follow for integration. So, and then that dose in the middle does become important, but I think less so, because you have somebody there that's helping you with that dose too now.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely going to be more people experimenting with it. Like I said, coming out of COVID, I just recently read an article about healthcare workers in China. Like 16% of them had reported having PTSD symptoms after being exposed to COVID. So I do think that's going to translate here when everything settles down, and there's going to be people looking for alternatives, and maybe using the plant medicines will have a role in the harm reduction when they're looking for these substances to help them calm down. Like sleeplessness and insomnia was one of the major symptoms. And to me, sometimes if I microdose personally, it'll give me the sleep that I need. It just depends on the person. And I think people are going to be experimenting. So dosage is going to be important in letting them know what they're getting into.
Absolutely. So the other big question I get a lot, because we get a lot of dosage questions, and it's something we have to tackle, being very careful how we talk about it, what micro subperceptual dosing is versus what's an okay at the museum low dose, and what's your stay at home, what's your definitely have a guide, and what's your mega dosing Kalindi E approach. And I'm right there. Keep going up every experience, because there's more you can learn.
Speaking of Kalindi, though, I wanted to just mention yesterday was his birthday, and we had shared a post about him, and just check out some of his videos too. He's definitely one of our mushroom teachers who held space before we could ever hold it. So
yeah, true.
Same for me. He was also my teacher. So yeah, happy heavenly birthday.
Yeah, the true Michigan original psychedelic pioneer, teacher to many of us. But the other question, this we brought it up earlier because of the article, but sourcing is the question we get a lot, and it's really hard to approach because again, we know where to get them. We're in the psychedelic community, but there's a lot of people that need access that don't know how to grow, aren't in tap with the psychedelic community, and we're getting messages every single day. How do I get these? And our auto message says, if you're contacting us too, we had to put an auto message that just addresses that right up front. What's your advice? I always tell people learn to grow, and we're starting to provide classes to do that through Michigan Psychedelic Society. But what's your advice?
So the same. I also hold classes. I've been doing classes since last year, 2020, and I will be holding more in 2021. I think learning how to grow your own frees you from this question in the future, and you'll always have that knowledge. And also, this goes back to, what the resolution says, and about Anne said, this isn't about like the commercialization of the plant right now. This is about home use. So that's what we're going to focus on. So I think that learning how to grow your own right now is probably, until some laws change and some things change with distribution. And unless you have a friend, like you said, you're kind of, right now it's grow your own. And that's the best option, in my opinion, right now.
Any other questions from everybody here for Shan before we start to wrap up? We're getting near the end of the show here.
No, thank you, Shan, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I do want to invite you and Hannah to join us in the final piece before the closure. Every week, every show, we do a entheogen of the show, and we're really going to reach out here this week to one that's not been covered in most Decrim Nature resolutions. There are
can I cut you off and just mention one thing real quick?
Oh, please.
Yeah, and then we're going to get to that, and this is a suspense buildup for the plant of the week. We're community partners with the Ann Arbor Film Fest. For anyone who's not familiar, it's one of the longest running film festivals in the world. As a community partner, we're able to get a discount for their full pass. It starts the 23rd of March and runs to March 28th. And if you go to the Ann Arbor Film Fest website, you can buy one of those full passes and get 10% off with the discount 59 AAFF community. So I just wanted to give you all that information. That's going to be next week, the Ann Arbor Film Fest, and we're community partners and proud to be it. Sorry, Mike. Now
it's posted on our Decrim Nature Michigan page too.
It will be posted on our Entheo Show page as well. And I'm really glad you remembered that, because that totally slipped my mind.
Yeah, no worries.
But so a few Decrim Nature groups have gone beyond what the other groups are doing. Part of that is because cannabis may not be legal in their community yet, or even medically accessible. So they've included cannabis. But this isn't cannabis we're talking about. Michigan, we've been playing the game a while. Salvia divinorum, the diviner's sage. For me, it's a really special plant. And I think it gets a really bad rap. I think it's really an interesting plant to be looking at, because it's not in the indolamine, tryptamine, phenethylamine classes like most traditional entheogenics, or even the hexylamine class like ketamine, PCP. It's in a totally different class of its own, but it has a really recent lot of cultural baggage attached to it, because it was very recently criminalized, because kids were making horrible, stupid YouTube videos of themselves, jumping out of windows and doing stupid things. And yes, if you smoke an 80x extract of salvia, as that was being marketed by head shops at the time, you might do something stupid. That's not how it's traditionally used, but it has a long history of indigenous use. And how it's traditionally used is it is chewed. It is quitted, actually. So they take a whole leaf and they crunch it up, just like this, stuff it in there, and they take it in sublingually like that. Well, it's also interesting because salvia seems to have, not very well documented, a reverse tolerance. Most substances, you smoke a little weed, and pretty soon you gotta smoke a little more weed. You drink a little alcohol, pretty soon you drink, most substances have a tolerance. This has a reverse tolerance, it seems, where you take an 80x extract once and you take half as much the next time, or a 40x extract, and you go just as far, if not further. And so I saw a lot of people working them that explored salvia beyond jumping out of windows and being ridiculous to all the way down to the point of quitting. So the salvia experience, like DMT, is really quick. It's 10 minutes. It's you're there and then you're back and you're like, what the fuck? But when I got really invested in it and started growing my own before it was illegal and started quitting, my experiences panned out 25 minutes, 40 minutes. I could make sense of it. It wasn't so abrupt and jarring. And there was, like DMT, this entity. Instead of entities, there was an entity, kind of like the Mushroom Man. But I can only define her as the goddess, Sally D herself. It was how she was experienced. And so for me, this is a mystical, a spiritual experience. The entheogen, the divine within, from a plant. And we discussed including it in Decriminalize Michigan, and it was voted against. I'm torn on the issue. I am sad on the issue. Salvia's got a bad rap, and I think people just need the education. They need to learn to use it right. And yeah, I want to hear anybody else's thoughts on salvia, if anybody got experience or knows.
I remember seeing it in head shops back in like 2010 or 2009, 8. And I did see different people like experience it, and all of them, it was very quick and almost like they were very confused during it and like upset and angry. I was wondering, Mike, if you had any experience, like I've heard like something like smoking it like through a bong versus like a joint. Or would you just recommend that quibbing thing?
So if you're going to delve into extracts, which are very hard to come by these days because it is highly illegal now, the best delivery method is in a bong with a torch. Hold it for 30 seconds. By 30 seconds, you're going to forget how to hold anything, and you will naturally just let go. The confusion, angriness thing, I think that's because everything's so foreign, and there's always this, you're trying to communicate with this entity out there, these beings, you're trying to, you can't. Versus DMT, where you hear these divine languages and music and instruments, there's a miscommunication. There's a communication gap with it. And I think that's because you're jumping all the way in with this extract. I've seen it repeatedly. But with the quitting, the come up is very natural, and the entities are a little more welcoming and a little more non-combative. I don't really want to talk about entities too much because everyone's going to start thinking I'm a quack. But at the same time, this is the experience I have. So my first time smoking salvia, I did it exactly as said, 80x extract with torch in a bong. Uh, it was still widely available. Was sitting on the edge of a waterbed, take my hit. And I remember at about 10 seconds, I couldn't sit up anymore. And my body started sinking back into the waterbed. And I felt like I was being encapsulated in sand, like sucked into quicksand. It was a waterbed. But I had no way of my body. And above me, the ceiling was this wall of sand, like in the movie The Mummy, just chasing after me. And over in the distance, there was this little door. And the door just kept getting closer and closer and closer as the wall started falling on me. And the entity was at the door. And then I burst through the door, and all I remember was like there were flags, like used car lot rainbow flags, and like everything was spinning like big wheels on Price is Right. And like it was a carnival. It was a happy place to be for me. The entity welcomed me. But I've seen people not have that experience. Other experiences are, a lot of them are very spinning, circular things. I think of the Wheel of Fortune, Tarot, because I'm always spinning. Like one of the experiences, I felt like I was on Child's Toy, a see and say, where you pull the string, spins around in a circle, and I was on the arrow. Cow says moo. But one of those arrows that I could have landed on was, this entity that was not going to be welcoming. And another one was this entity that was going to be welcoming. And I was kind of floating on this thing through like a movie lot. And each building, I landed on a different one. And each building was a different experience with an entity that was welcoming or not. And I think it's just, you got to be prepared to deal with some alien shit if you're going to try this. But it is a divine experience. And I'm very sad it's not included in Michigan. But I do see lots of promise on the horizon for all drug decrim. We are coming up on time. Last thoughts from everyone.
I've got one more thing to add. Hash Bash is April 3rd at high noon. This year it's going to be streamed live from a production facility with incredible speakers. And I want to invite everyone to join us. It's going to be on twitch.tv/A2hashbash. Again, twitch.tv/A2hashbash. It's one of the longest running activists assemblies in history for cannabis.
Okay, and what is happening on the other end of the calendar?
We have September 19th at 11:11 a.m. the Entheo Fest, which will be in downtown Ann Arbor, in the place where Hash Bash normally is held. But hopefully September 19th we'll be able to gather in a big group down there in downtown Ann Arbor.
All right. Other last thoughts?
Oh, Hannah? Oh, you got nothing to say. You're clapping. I was going to say next week's episode, I think we have Jeff Irwin on. And then we have in 2 weeks from now, we have Jeff Irwin on. And we have some of those guest speakers from Hash Bash on the second half of the show. We're going to talk with them about the virtual Hash Bash. And like I said earlier, yesterday's action hour is to give your representative and senator a call. You can find out more information about that at decriminaturemi.org. And if you didn't do that one, there's also a letter. You can find the template for that on our website as well. So,
clarification, is that in fact on the website already?
I know the template is. I swear it's somewhere. But I don't know if the Lobby 101 is just yet.
So, yeah, if you haven't done the letter to your representative or your senator, the letter template is on the website. It's on our Facebook. If you are calling your senator or representative, in addition to the email that we're asking to send or the letter you print, or both, this call we're asking everybody to make is to schedule a meeting. It's going to take 2-3 weeks for them to actually have a meeting with you anyways. So schedule it now. Contact us, decrimnaturemi@gmail.org or gmail.com. decrimnaturemi@gmail.com. Let us know when your meeting is. We will work with you so you don't have to go alone, so you're prepared with materials, and so we have an effective lobbying team to get everybody on our side and have multiple co-sponsors when we move ahead with this language in the next month or two here. Anne, Shan, Hannah, any last thoughts?
Yep. Just add Decriminalize Nature Hazel Park on your social media. If you're a resident of Hazel Park and you want to volunteer, contact me through there, Decriminalize Nature Hazel Park at gmail.com.
All right. Hannah?
Yeah, I would say if you're looking to get on board with the Lansing team, so decrimnaturem.org and fill in your contact info there, and we'll definitely get you looped into our regular meetings. And if you have any connections with Lansing council members or the mayor, any elected officials in the area, would love to hear from you as well.
I think that goes without saying for the state, for Hazel Park. If you're in Grand Rapids or Detroit, we need the same support. If you're connected with an elected official, let us know and let us work with you and work with them, and let's do this together. Thank you, Shan. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Anne, for being here. Jim, it's always a joy. Colin, till next time. Stay funky.
Thanks, y'all.